بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. I'll just request once again if everybody can take a seat so I can start the proceedings. Walk a little slower, Mommy, said a child so small. I'm following in your footsteps and I don't want to fall. Sometimes your steps are very fast, sometimes they are hard to see. So walk a little slower, Mommy, for you are leading me. Someday when I am all grown up, you are what I want to be. So walk a little slower, Mommy, for I must follow you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Farhanaz, and I'll be taking you through this wonderful evening today. Grateful to each one of you for being here on this memorable evening, sharing the happiness of this amazing family, and congratulating a young emerging star for taking a step that is rarely witnessed. Alhamdulillah, a million times. I know Fakhra for over a decade now. Each time I meet her or her family, whether in person, in pictures, or in words, it gives me a lot of happiness, energy, and I'm no less than impressed each time than the one that I met last. I have been fortunate and honored to be a part of Fakhra's proud moments and memories. A few years back, celebrating her book launch, and today, Syeda Rabab Ali's book launch, Social Equity, the Right to an Adequate Standard of Living. I have no words to say how happy I am. I would like to invite respectable Saqib Sadiq Sahab, Amir Masjid Numra, for recitation from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب صدق الله العظيم.
Subhanallah, Jazakallah. Okay. To formally start today's proceedings, we would like to invite on stage, and I would like your support by giving a big round of applause to our chief guests, guests of honor, and the star of the evening. May I request respectable Khalid Mirza Sahab, chief guest for today's evening, to please come on stage. Center, please. Yeah, sure. Thank you. May I request Mr. Ahmed Chinoy, please, to come on to the stage? Thank you. Professor Dr. Ruxar Ahmed, Ms. Hina Usmani. Can I ask you to come on the stage, please? Thank you, Hina. Dr. Huma Sudhir, thank you so much for coming. And last but not the least, the star of the evening, Syeda Rabab Ali. Thank you. Okay, so a formal, brief introduction of our young author to the book Social Equity. She is an inspiration for many, I'm sure. Syeda Rabab Ali is a 15-year-old beautiful soul who in her book shares, I'm just another 15-year-old navigating life, finding my passion and meanwhile trying to do some good in this world. I'm sure all of you like me are overwhelmed. Syeda Rabab has spent her thoughts and research on a very unique and sensitive topic of social equity. The book discusses the concept of equity and educates the reader how it has developed over the years. In the literature review, the most relevant researches of other scholars are also presented. The book spans over 9 chapters, addressing several aspects of social equity, from economics to environment, legal and judicial, employment opportunities and compensation, education, and gender equity. The last chapter, which I find the most interesting, it elaborates on the Islamic aspects of social equity. Just for everybody's information, the book, if you would like to purchase it today, it's available on a 20% discount right outside the hall, and it is also available online on Amazon and all the Liberty bookstores around. Okay. I would now like to invite one of my guests of honor. What I'll do is I'll start off with Iram Sabah. Iram Sabah was supposed to join us today. There was an unfortunate incident in her family. Her father passed away just recently, so that's why she is not in today. There's another sad news that Rubab's grandfather and Rizwan, his father, also passed away last Friday. So what we can do is, for a few moments, we can pray for the departed souls. I know, introducing my guests of honor today and my chief guest, I mean, I will be introducing them one by one, but I know for a fact that they do not need any introduction. However, just for all of us to know how big and how important and how honored we are today, I would start off with sharing a few, these words will not do justice, but then still, I will say a few words about Honorable Dr. Iram Sabah, who's an associate professor at IBA. She is the world's 17th most influential woman in the Islamic business and finance, as per the Cambridge Institute of Islamic Finance 2020. She's the board member of Malaysian, Pakistan, and Maldivian companies. She's also a member of the Federation of FPCCI Standing Committee on Islamic Banking 2021. Grand Counselor, Chartered Institute of Islamic Finance Professionals, Malaysia. Program Director, MS Islamic Banking and Finance, IBA Karachi. Women on Board Distinction and Award holder for Leading Women in Islamic Finance, 2017, Maldives. Women on Board Distinction and Award holder for Best Young Women Professional, 2016, Maldives. Sub-editor of Journal of Islamic Finance Accountancy, AOFI, Bahrain. Vice President, Asia Pacific Applied Economics Association, Australia. She's not present, but I think we can give her a round of applause because she tried her best to be here. Our next guest of honor is Barrister Dr. Huma Sudhir. She, like Iram Sabah, does not need an introduction, but Dr. Huma is a highly accomplished individual possessing over 20 years of expertise in legal and finance matters relating to policy making, governance, financial crimes, technology and artificial intelligence, litigation investigation, legal and regulatory risk management, C-suite advisory, cross-cultural talent development, research and training experience, and EMEA, CIS, APAC, excuse me if I'm pronouncing them incorrectly, and North American regions in leadership roles, including Barrister, United Kingdom, former Judge, Pakistan, former Fellow, Harvard Law School, Visiting Research Fellow, ISRA, Member Editorial Board, International Law Journal on Artificial Intelligence and Robotics, Trainer, Judicial Academy, Pakistan, Director, Technical Development, AOFI, Bahrain, Assurance and Business Advisory, PwC, Banking and Capital Markets. Dr. Huma has worked with leading Queen's Counsel barrister, forensic experts, and senior partners of law firms on high-profile, complex, multi-billion-dollar fraud cases. She has developed governance, accounting, and auditing standards with AOFI board members. I hope I'm not missing out anything. She's also a recipient of many gold medals and international and national fellowships, scholarships, and research grants. I am personally honored to be standing here to invite her over the podium to say a few words. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. First of all, thank you, Farah, for your kind words. I would have to say that, and particularly for such a generous introduction. So whatsoever I'm here, just like the way Rubab has dedicated her book to her parents, so whatsoever I'm here, it's definitely I dedicated to my parents, my grandparents, my teachers, my mentors, and my seniors. As you have already identified and pointed out, so somehow I wear two hats. I am a lawyer. I'm also a qualified chartered accountant, and I'm so pleased and I'm so honored to be sitting with such a group of stellar scholars and personalities, such as Professor Khalid, Hina Usmani, Dr. Ruxar, and Chennai Saab. So that's an honor for me, and definitely not to forget Dr. Iram Sabah. So Dr. Iram and Fakhra and me, I think three of us, we look up to, and we have in various capacities and in various roles somehow have received inspiration from you. Now, coming back to the book, honestly speaking, when Fakhra, I'm sure you would excuse me because I'm just addressing you as a friend, Fakhra, so definitely Dr. Fakhra. When Dr. Fakhra, she actually called me and she told me about this book. We have had a few discussions on and off about Rubab, and when she said she has written something, so that was not a surprise to me, because the kind of things Fakhra has shared about Rubab with me first, and also she is in a home where she is being brought up by parents like Rizwan Sahab and Dr. Fakhra, so it was bound to happen. It was bound to happen that you were raising a star in your home. So now, going back to the topic and to the book, if I I think this is a topic on which you can find plenty of literature, books, and articles and whatnot. But the best part, which has actually touched my heart, that such a sensitive issue, right? A book on such a sensitive issue has been authored by a teenager of such a tender age. So I was actually, yes. I mean, to feel these kind of things and definitely undertake such a research. So I was actually, once again, I was speaking with Rubab, and I actually asked her that this is too sensitive, and this topic is something I think being an adult, if I would like to write or if would like to feel some of it, so it takes a toll, emotional toll. So then I asked her, how do you process your feelings? So she said she has another outlet. She, I think, writes some poetry as well. So yes, there are so many chapters, and particularly she has wonderfully covered various aspects of social equity in this book. And we have experts and stellar personalities who will share their thoughts on it. So for instance, if I just talk about this chapter number 6, which is equity in employment opportunities and compensation, right? So this is something where on chapter 6, so this is page 42. So yeah, so here she's talking about disabled persons, minority, females, women participation, and underprivileged class participation. And she has covered it from the legal and regulatory perspective. She has quoted formidable scholars on the subject. And she has also tried to cover and encapsulate the local applicable regulatory environment. For instance, she actually quotes Disabled Persons Employment and Rehabilitation Ordinance 1981. So this is, as I said, so the moment you read it, even if you look at the table of index, I think it makes me feel, I mean, it makes me very emotional that, once again, Rubab has written it. I mean, if maybe this book was authored by any, I mean, by an adult, by any of us, then I think maybe we would have talked about some other things as well. So anyways, because this is an interesting topic, and particularly when we are talking about disabled persons, I would like to share a very small piece of my life relating to this disability. So it appears that it has been a long time. So when I was completing my chartered accountancy, right? And so there was a time, so after certain stages, when we qualify certain exams, then we apply for articleship, which is a 4 years rigorous, or 3.5 years rigorous training experience, which we are required, that training we are required to complete. And just before that, I met a serious accident, right? So it was a fracture, and I couldn't walk. So I actually suffered with temporary disability. So I used to walk with a walking frame, right? And so it was a leading firm. Now at Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, it is so, I'm so pleased to see that yes, things have changed drastically. But in those times, so there were 10 steps there, I think 10 or 12. And I was like invited, so that's the top audit firm. I really wanted to be there. But now I'm with this walking frame, looking at those stairs and thinking like, gosh, what should I do now? And then comes a figure, my father. So he gave me assurance. Yes, it was a temporary disability, right? You're no less than others. Don't think of your walking frame or anything like that. They supported me, my parents, right? And the way they, because I was too embarrassed that people are looking at me, and then how you're helping me, and it's like awkward to climb these stairs. But that assurance, yes, I mean, I didn't inform the partners of those firms. I need to give a disclaimer here. So it was not their fault. It was me being very enthusiastic, and suddenly this enthusiasm was down when I looked at stairs. So what I mean to say here is that kind of assurance which my father gave me on those steps, that yes, it's just a fracture. Within few months, you won't even remember it. Whatsoever it is, it's a temporary disability. You are no less than others. That kind of assurance, as a society, we need to provide to whom? To, for instance, women. To whom? To, for instance, underprivileged class people. To whom? For example, the minority people. This is something, for example, disabled people. That kind of assurance is needed, because that assurance which was given by my parents to me on those steps, I remember it when I qualified as a chartered accountant and I got a gold medal and I was climbing those few steps. I remembered it when I actually stepped at Harvard Law School and I was climbing those stairs. I remembered it when I actually qualified as a barrister. So just those few words, I mean, just that feeling of inclusiveness, right? This is really important. And I really like it, the way she compares, and she says something about there's a difference between social equality and social equity. So those people who are underprivileged, they don't need equal treatment, right? I mean, if you provide all those equal opportunities to everyone, so for example, me having such supportive parents, and for example, someone else, right? Another lady, another woman, another girl, maybe in a village, having no support from the family, from the community. If you provide equal opportunity to me and her, it's not fair. So yes, I agree with you, Rubab, on this. And your work is a drop. It might appear as a drop in ocean, but mind you, each drop, it matters, because eventually it forms an ocean. And I would like to dedicate, and it's in front of such a stellar audience, and particularly Fakhra, who is also a poetess, I am so, it's difficult to say it, a verse. So for Rubab, हम वो वक्त की धूप हमें जज्ब न कर पाएगी, वक्त की धूप हमें जज्ब न कर पाएगी, हम वो ज़र्रा हैं जो सूरज को निगल जाते हैं. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. I would now like to invite our next guest of honor, Ms. Hina Usmani. Like Barrister Dr. Huma, Ms. Usmani also does not need an introduction. However, I need to play my role today as well. So Ms. Usmani is founder and managing director of Usmani & Company, the women-led quality rated SMP in Pakistan, introducing the unique work from home and flexible hours model in 2013 for women accountants. Usmani & Co. is one of the global signatories of the United Nations Women Empowerment Principles. Fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan, ICAP, carrying over 29 years of combined work and professional practice experience. She's the first women council member and the first women vice president of ICAP. Currently, she is council member and chairing internal audit practice development and CA women committees of ICAP and internationally representing ICAP at SAFA SMP Committee, SAFA Women Leadership Committee, and as a technical advisor at IFAC SMP Advisory Group. She has served for over 12 years at senior management level positions in the leasing and banking sector prior to commencement of practice in 2004. Her contributions to the accountancy profession in Pakistan have been widely appreciated and portrayed in their publications by the World Bank, United Nations Development of Pakistan, local and international professional accountancy circles. Hina Usmani, if you could please come here at the podium and say a few words.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Thank you, Farah, for your kind introduction. And thank you, Fakhra and Rizwan Saab, for inviting. I'm honored to be part of this guest speaker, and very honored Mr. Khalid Saab is here as chief guest. All the honorable guests here and all the audience. I'm very pleased to see that there are a lot of young generation is interested in this topic, and the Fakhra's definitely this is Fakhra's brainchild, and then it moves on and it comes in her daughters, in the shape of her daughters coming up with this topic, which is very, very unique, and it's need of time. This social equity, and I was unable to read the entire book, but I went through the topics which she covered, and definitely there was very important, which on the economic and the judiciary system, the gender equality, and all the aspects which a society should see as individual, and they feel that how social equality is important in any particular environment. As you might know that our country's population is mostly youth, more than 65% youth populated in this country, and when we see people like the young generation like Rubab, who came up with this thought, aap sochein, that is the mindset we need at this time, and I think all of our youth think on the similar lines, and everyone thinks that of course the right should be equal, and we should have balance in the society, and we should move forward. If I share the experience of the particular profession which I belong to is the accountancy. When we see in accountancy the very less participation of women in the profession, we had to do a lot of efforts and initiatives to negate the wrong perception of very hardships, of not successful CA profession among the women. So we did a lot of branding and a lot of awareness among the youth, and that helped us in bringing more women to our profession. So this is one area exactly. I think I wish all the good work and the Rubab has done in this book, and I am sure she will definitely touch upon other sensitive areas in future, and जो इनके ख्यालात हैं वो यकीनन हम आगे अपनी नई जनरेशन को पास ऑन करने में this will help us in bringing the positive mindset among the people. और हमारे हर एक्शन में एक positive approach होनी चाहिए. We should move forward with a balanced approach. जहाँ भी हम नेगेटिविटी को अगर हम इग्नोर करेंगे, नेगेटिविटी को हम इग्नोर करेंगे, वो हमारे लिए that will help us in progressing towards the positive direction. So thank you very much once again for inviting. I will not take much of your time, and thank you very much everyone. All the best, Rubab.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Hina. Our next guest of honor is Professor Dr. Ruxar Ahmed. Meritorious Professor Dr. Ruxar Ahmed holds PhD, LLM, LLB, and an MBA. He's a certified postdoctorate from Edinburgh, Scotland, and Harvard Law School, Harvard University, USA. He's nominated by Higher Education Commission, HEC, for the Dean and Vice Chancellor Training and Leadership at the University of Glasgow, Scotland. Currently, he's a founding dean of Zabust, or we call it Shaheed Zabul. Okay, thank you for correcting me. Zabul it's the University of Law, former Dean of Faculty of Management, Business Administration and Commerce at Public Sector, SMI University, Karachi. He has around 3 decades of experience in corporate research and law, author of more than 100 publications, including 15 books, and performing honorary editorial services to international index journals. He is an HSC-approved PhD supervisor and resource person. Professor Ruxar is honored to be professor and dean in 6 different universities. He is a lifetime member of Postdoctoral Research Society UK and certified from British Film Institute, London. He had taught in several PhD programs and supervised 15 PhD theses and supervising PhD students in HR, law, Islamic finance, business and media studies. Dr. Saab, I hope I've just done some justice to your introduction. If you could please come on to the podium.
اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. ریسپیکٹیبل پروفیسر خالد مرزا صاحب، محترمہ ہنا عثمانی صاحبہ، محترم جناب احمد چنائی صاحب، محترمہ ڈاکٹر فاخرہ رضوان صاحبہ، السلام علیکم. رباب کی یہ جو کتاب جس کی آج کتاب کی رونمائی کی تقریب یہ سجی ہے، اس حوالے سے میں یہاں پر بھی، اور جب اس کتاب کو میں نے پڑھا اور دیکھا اور اس میں میں نے ایک پیج پر میں نے بھی تھوڑا سا کچھ لکھا ہے. تو ابھی انٹروڈکشن میں ذکر ہوا کہ 15 کتابوں کا 15، اب چونکہ وہ 18 بکس ہیں، تو یہ میں نے 15 کتابیں 15 سالوں میں لکھی تھیں، اور ایک 15 سال کی بچی ایک کتاب لکھتی ہے. تو میں اس پہ یہی کہوں گا کہ اور جس عنوان کا انتخاب کیا گیا نہایت ہی اہم، اور ایسا عنوان اور پھر اس میں جو موضوع، جہاں مسابقت کی بات کی گئی ہے، شفافیت کی بات کی گئی ہے، انصاف کی بات کی گئی ہے، جس کو ہم سوشل ایکویلٹی کہتے ہیں. ان اہم موضوع پر قلم بندی کرنا کوئی آسان کام نہیں، کیونکہ یہ ایسے عنوانات ہیں جو کسی گرد کے تلے دبے ہوئے تھے، اور اس پہ قلم اٹھانا نہایت ہی مشکل کام ہے. اس کے لیے تحقیق کے سمندر کو پار کرنا ہوتا ہے، اور جو تحقیقی کام اس میں کیا گیا ہے وہ میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ وہ پڑھنے کے قابل ہے. اور یقیناً اس میں ان کے والدین کا جو رول رہا ہے وہ بڑا اہم ہے، کیونکہ والدین کے رول یا والدین کی مدد کے بغیر بچوں کی کامیابی ذرا مشکل ہوتی ہے. تو اس میں ڈاکٹر فاخرہ کو میں مبارکباد دوں گا کہ انہوں نے جو اپنے ماشاءاللہ جتنی انہوں نے اپنی کامیابی حاصل کی ہیں زندگی میں، انہوں نے اپنے بچوں کو بھی اسی راستے پہ لگایا ہے. اور رباب کو میں جتنی مبارکباد دوں، یہ تو اب میں 15 سالوں میں 15 کتابیں، اس بچی نے 15 سال کی عمر میں کتاب لکھی ہے. میں تو شاید فخر کرتا تھا کبھی، اب تو میں سوچنے پہ مجبور ہوا ہوں کہ ہمارے ملک کے بچے اگر رباب کی طرح ہیں تو اس ملک کا مستقبل بہت اچھا ہے. جیسے میں اکثر کہا کرتا ہوں کہ نوجوان، آج کے نوجوان کل کے لیڈرز ہیں. تو اس میں مجھے کوئی شک نہیں ہے کہ ہمارا آنے والا وقت، ہمارا آنے والا پاکستان جن لیڈرز کے لیڈرشپ میں ہوگا تو وہ بہت زبردست اور بڑے کامیاب ہیں، اور اس کی پراسپیرٹی، ڈیولپمنٹ کو میں بہت اچھے طریقے سے دیکھ سکتا ہوں. اور کہ اگر رباب جیسے بچے اگر اس طرح کے کاموں میں انٹرسٹ لے رہے ہیں، ہم بچوں کو کتاب پڑھتے ہوئے دیکھ کر خوش ہوتے ہیں، اور اگر بچے کتاب لکھنا شروع کر دیں تو میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ رباب کے پیرنٹس کے لیے خوشی کا کیا عالم ہوگا. تو بس اسی کے ساتھ، کیونکہ اور بھی معزز مہمان ہیں جنہوں نے کچھ کہنا ہے. ویسے میں تو پروفیسر ہوں، ایک دفعہ مائک میرے ہاتھ میں آ جائے تو لوگ دعا کرتے ہیں کہ مائک کیسے واپس ملے گی. ٹھیک ہے، تھینک یو ویری مچ.
بہت شکریہ پروفیسر صاحب، اینڈ تھینک یو فار ہینڈنگ اوور دا مائک. میں ایک تھوڑا سا اسپیچز میں میں بریک لینا چاہوں گی بفور وی اسٹارٹ وی ریکمینس اٹ اگین, because what we want is right now that we do a formal book launch. I will be requesting Rubab and the chief guests and guests of honors. We'll just give you the books. If we can have Rubab and Mr. Amin Chinoy give the books to Khalid Sahab, and Khalid Sahab gives the books to the other guests as well. So can I request if everybody could come here and we do a formal picture for the books, please. I said, can we have the books for everyone, please? So I'll request Rubab. Asad, we'll do it one by one, yeah. Can we please do a round of applause? It'll look nice. So Rubab, you can look into the camera. Absolutely big smiles, please. Once we are done with the guests, can I ask Rubab to present the book to her parents, please, along with the bouquet? Because quite a bit of a credit goes to them as well. And I want the biggest smiles ever on your faces, please. बहुत शुक्रिया जिन्होंने तस्वीरें ली. Thank you so much. And can I request the guests to please take a seat now? अगर एक प्रोग्राम अपने सीक्वेंस के मुताबिक और टाइम के मुताबिक चले तो बहुत बड़ी बात होती है. So this was something that we had to do right in the middle. It wasn't planned like this, but I think everybody did an amazing job. Thank you so much. So now I'll go back, inviting my next respectable guest of honor, Mr. Ahmed Chinoy. Mr. Ahmed Chinoy is an electric director on the board of Pakistan Stock Exchange. He's the managing partner of Arcson's group of companies. Mr. Chinoy is qualified from the Institute of Cost and Management Accountants of Pakistan and holds a graduate degree in commerce from the University of Karachi. He is also a certified director from the Pakistan Institute of Corporate Governance. Mr. Chinoy is a prominent business and social figure in Pakistan. He has served the society in different capacities in the areas of business, education, health, crime prevention, and other social services. He has rendered invaluable services to the nation in these fields. Honorable Mr. Chinoy has successfully served as Chief of the Citizens Police Liaison Committee, which we all know as CPLC, from 2010 to 2015. He's also been actively serving on the boards of various hospitals and educational institutes and heading the Maiman community as the president of All Pakistan Maiman Federation. Earlier, he's also served as the managing committee of FPCCI for many years and has also remained chairman Pakistan Cloth Merchants Association. Mr. Chinoy, for his services to the peoples of Pakistan, is also the recipient of prestigious national awards, Hilal-e-Imtiaz and Sitara-e-Imtiaz. Honorable Mr. Chinoy, if you could please share your thoughts in some words, please.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Respected Chief Guest Dr. Khalid Mirza, honorable guest of honors, ladies and gentlemen, and of course the proud parents, Major Retired Rizwan and Mrs. Rizwan. Assalamu alaikum. It's a proud privilege for me to be a guest of honor at a gathering which is being held to in the honor of a very, very young writer. And I'm today really amazed to see how much potential this planet, this part of the planet has. And we as proud Pakistanis can pay our greatest respect and encouragement to this young writer who has today shown that we have creativity, we have thoughts, we can guide the society, and in fact they are the future leaders of the country. Hats off to you, Rubab, for such a wonderful book that you have today presented. मैंने इस किताब को पढ़ा नहीं है अभी, सिर्फ डॉक्टर साहब से लेकर थोड़ा सा मैंने इसको देखा था. Or the topics that have been covered are remarkable. We have worked all our life in sending this message across to all the Pakistanis. कोशिश हमने की है कि माशरे में जहाँ जहाँ तब्दीली ला सकते हैं सबको इक्वालिटी की बुनियाद पर जो है वो लेकर आगे चलें. लेकिन ज़ाहिर है यहाँ एक बड़ा बेदर्द माशरा भी हमारे पास मौजूद है, और जिस तरह इसमें मुख्तलिफ़ टॉपिक्स को उठाया गया है, चाहे दैट रिलेट्स टू फाइनेंस, इकनॉमिक्स, जेंडर इक्वलिटी, اسٹینڈرڈز آف لیونگ, بہت ساری چیزیں ہیں. ہم جب ان چیزوں کو دیکھتے ہیں تو ہمیں خیال آتا ہے کہ ہمارے درمیان کتنی ڈسپیرٹی موجود ہے اس سوشل انوائرمنٹ کے اندر. اور یہ ڈسپیرٹی جو ہے وہ ظاہر ہے لوگوں کو احساس محرومی بھی دیتی ہے, لوگوں کو یہ بھی بتاتی ہے کہ ان کے ساتھ انصاف نہیں ہو رہا. اور یہ بے انصافی ہے اس معاشرے کی کہ جس میں ہم رہ رہے ہیں, جس میں ہم ساری چیزیں برداشت کر رہے ہیں, کہ ہم آج اس ماحول میں بیٹھ کر اپنے آپ کو تو بہت ایلیویٹ شاید فیل کرتے ہوں, لیکن ہمیں جو ہمارے بھائی ہیں, ہماری بہنیں ہیں, which are living in a substandard style of life, even in fact in this city of Karachi also. تو پھر ہمیں جا کے یہ احساس ہوتا ہے کہ اللہ تعالیٰ نے ہمیں کن نعمتوں سے نوازا ہے, ہم کہاں بیٹھے ہیں اور ہم کہاں پہنچ گئے ہیں. تو یہ ہمیں اس بات کی بھی یاد دلاتا ہے, اور ہم اس بات پہ بھی کوشاں رہتے ہیں کہ ہم اپنے لوگوں کا خیال کر لیں. ہمارا مذہب اسلام بڑے واضح انداز میں ہمیں یہ سکھاتا ہے کہ پہلے اپنے برابر والوں کا خیال کر لو, ان کی ضرورتوں کا خیال کر لو, اور اس کے بعد جو ہے وہ آگے بڑھنے کی بات کرو. تو شاید ہم نے یہ فلسفہ, ہم نے یہ تعلیمات, ہم نے یہ ہدایت بھلا دی ہے, اور ہم اپنے تمام چیزوں سے بے خبر ہو کر اس معاشرے کے اندر صرف اپنائیت کے اندر چل رہے ہوتے ہیں. اور یہی اپنائیت جو ہے وہ معاشرے کو تباہی کی طرف لے کے چلی جاتی ہے. آج معاشرہ بہت ساری بہرہ روی کا بھی شکار ہے, بہت ساری پریشانیوں کا بھی شکار ہے, اور ہم جب ایکویلٹی کی بات کرتے ہیں تو شاید ہماری نظر میں ایکویلٹی آتی نہیں ہے. I would sincerely like Dr. Fakhra to get this book also published in Urdu. Whatever help we can provide you, inshallah we will do that. ہمارے بھی ٹرسٹ ہیں, ہماری بھی وہ ہیں, لیکن آئی ایم سو پراؤڈ دیٹ a 15-year-old teenager has raised this very important issue. میں بھی ڈاکٹر صاحبہ سے بھی بات کر رہا تھا کہ اس کے لیے ایک بڑا ٹائم چاہیے, بڑی سوچ چاہیے, بڑی تحقیق چاہیے, اور ساتھ ساتھ آپ کا اپنا ایپٹیٹیوڈ بھی چاہیے کہ آپ اس قسم کی چیزیں جو ہیں وہ لکھ سکیں, اس کو آگے لا سکیں. ڈاکٹر صاحبہ مجھے بتا رہی تھی کہ یہ بچی بہت سینسٹیو ہے, اور ماشاءاللہ یہ سینسٹیو لوگ ہی جو ہے وہ اس سوچ کو آگے لا سکتے ہیں. تو یہ وہ سوچ ہے جو ہم تمام پاکستانیوں کی ہونی چاہیے کہ آج یہ وقت آ گیا ہے کہ ہم اس ملک کو بنانے کی بات کر لیں, ملک میں لوگوں کو جو ہے وہ ایک سکون اور چین دینے کی بات کر لیں, ان کو کم از کم ذہنی آسودگی حاصل ہو. لیکن افسوس کے ساتھ یہ کہنا پڑتا ہے کہ پھر ہم جو ہے وہ اچھی اچھی باتیں تو کر لیتے ہیں اور اگلے دن پھر اپنے کاموں میں مگن ہو جاتے ہیں, بغیر اس خیال کے کہ ہم اپنے لوگوں کے ساتھ کیا سلوک کر رہے ہیں, ان کو کیسے آگے لے کے چل رہے ہیں. یہ بات صرف عام لوگوں تک بھی محدود نہیں ہے. ہمارے جو خواص ہیں اس ملک کے, چاہے ان کا تعلق کہیں سے بھی ہو, کسی بھی اس سے ہو, میں ان شاخوں کا نام نہیں لینا چاہتا کہ جہاں جہاں یہ بیٹھے ہوئے ہیں اور جہاں جہاں سے یہ ہدایات مل رہی ہوتی ہیں, لیکن ہر ایک کا جو ہے وہ ایپٹیٹیوڈ صرف اور صرف اپنے حد تک ہی محدود رہتا ہے کہ میں کسی طرح جو ہے وہ آگے نکل جاؤں, میں کسی طرح جو ہے وہ ان مسائل کو جو ہے وہ پس پردہ ڈال کر اپنے آپ کو جو ہے وہ ترقی کی عظیم بلندیوں کی طرف لے کے چلا جاؤں. اور اس میں جو ہے وہ ہم اپنے آپ کو برباد کر دیتے ہیں, اپنے آپ کو تباہ کر دیتے ہیں. As Chief CPLC, I had the opportunity to listen to thousands of people in my tenure کہ ان کی جو شکایت تھی لا اینڈ آرڈر کے بھی حوالے سے, سوشل انجسٹس کے حوالے سے بھی, اور بھی بہت سارے مسائل تھے جو ہم نے ایڈریس کیے تھے اور جن پہ ہم نے بات سنی تھی. تو ہمیں یہ سن کر دیکھ کر بڑا دکھ ہوتا تھا. یہ ایک ایسا احساس تھا کہ جو ہمیں یہ احساس دلاتا تھا کہ اس ملک کے اندر جو معاشرتی تباہی ہے, جو دوسری تباہیاں ہیں, ان کی صرف اور صرف ایک وجہ ہے کہ سوشل انجسٹس جو ہے وہ ہمارے درمیان ایک پروان چڑھا ہوا ہے, اور سوشل انجسٹس کو ہم شاید ایڈریس کرنے کی بات نہیں کرتے. مجھے بڑی خوشی ہے کہ رباب بیٹی نے جو ہے وہ آج اس کا بیڑا اٹھایا ہے, اور انشاءاللہ یہ عزم اور یہ کام جو ہے وہ بہت آگے بڑھے گا. وی آر سینگ اے اسٹار ان دا فیوچر انشاءاللہ. اور میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ ہمیں ان جیسے بچوں کی حوصلہ افزائی ہر موقع پہ کرنی چاہیے, ان کو جو ہے وہ آگے لانا چاہیے کہ دس از آور فیوچر جنریشن, دس از دا فیوچر آف پاکستان, اینڈ دس از دا فیوچر واٹ وی ایکسپیکٹ فرام آور ینگسٹرز. ابھی جیسے بتایا گیا کہ 65% سے زیادہ ہماری یوتھ موجود ہے اس ملک کے اندر, اینڈ دے کین ڈو ونڈرز ود دس نیشن. ہماری ساری امیدیں, ساری نظریں جو ہیں وہ انہی کی طرف ہیں, اور ان کو جتنا آج ہم انکریج کریں گے میں سمجھتا ہوں کہ اس سے اچھی کوئی بات نہیں ہوگی. میں آئی ووڈ لائک ٹو کنگریچولیٹ دا پراؤڈ پیرنٹس آلسو ٹوڈے, کہ ان کی یہ تربیت ہے کہ جس کی بنا پر اس بچی نے ماشاءاللہ اتنا بڑا کام سر انجام دیا ہے. اینڈ آئی تھنک دس ول گو اے لانگ وے in the history of Pakistan, in the history of writing such books, and all credit goes to the proud family. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Innoy Saab. There's no second thought, there is no second question to what you just shared here. For those who joined us late, Rubab ki ye kitab, Aaj, because of the special occasion, it is available outside at a special discount of 20%. People, those people who want to buy it later on, it is available on Liberty bookstores all around, as well as online, Amazon ke through. میں تھوڑی سی ایک چیز یہاں پر ایڈ کرنا چاہوں گی چنوئی صاحب کی بات کو, کہ میری جنریشن یا ہماری جنریشن اور آج کی جنریشن میں یہ ایک بہت بڑا ڈفرینس ہے. آئی ایم شیور میری جنریشن کے لوگوں کے اندر بھی بہت ساری سوچ تھی, لیکن وہ ہمت اور وہ حوصلہ نہیں تھا کہ اس کو لکھ لیا جائے. What Rubab has done and Rubab is going to do in future, I'm pretty sure she's going to be an inspiration for not only this generation that she belongs to, but shayad meri generation ke liye bhi ek inspiration ho. Before I call our chief guest for this evening, I would call the star of the evening, Syeda Rabab Ali, कि वो यहाँ आए and she shares her thoughts, she shares her feelings, and I'm sure she's going to definitely comment on the support that she got from her parents as well. So let's give her a big round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, good evening, and a very warm welcome to you all. I'd like to thank everyone for being here today, despite it being a working day. It's truly an honor to be among such notable people. I never really considered writing a book, to be honest. The couple times I did, I imagined myself older and the topic to be, stereotypically cooler or more philosophical, you could say. But when I travel in Pakistan and I see disparities in living standards that at times vary so much that some places don't even have basic facilities. Seeing this and witnessing many other things in society, I had thoughts like, why is this happening, or how these things can be avoided. Although the first solution to these thoughts was equal distribution of resources, after further research and second thoughts, I came across equity. When I understood the concept of equity, I felt the need that more people should know about it. So I discussed this with my mother, and her solution or her answer was that I should write about it. Not just write, but write a book. So that's what I did. I gave it a shot, and one thing led to another, and here I am today. We often hear about equality, so we understand this concept well. But equity is a comparatively much more underrated topic, in my opinion. Unfortunately, it's as important as it is underrated. I find the concept of equity tremendously important, which is why I want to spread awareness about it, about the issues in Pakistan, and the necessary steps to ensure an adequate living standard for every Pakistani through this book. Social equity can be a difficult term to define, as it has been for ages. A reason for this is because equity cannot have a standard parameter in every aspect of life. So I try to explain the concept and touch upon some important topics in relevance to different aspects of equity. A topic I find of utmost importance these days especially is the prevailing inequity and inequality towards women in society. About this, I would like to say that men and women are created differently. They have a different biology, they have different reactions, so they need to be treated differently. I feel that it is essential to understand their differences in order for each of them to prosper. Since they cannot be judged on the same basis in a lot of areas, which is why their differences need to be taken into account. And this is what equity does. Now, there are calls for equity in other areas of life as well, which I have discussed in the book generally and in specific to Pakistan. The most important reason to write this book was that I wanted to make a change, no matter how small. Even if one more person can be aware, that would really feel satisfying. I feel like I've taken much of your time. Since this book is really close to my heart, I can speak about it for days on end. But I will conclude it here with a big thanks to my parents. Thank you so much for supporting me through all this. This could not have been possible without you at all. Mom, thank you for always pushing me to do my best. And I apologize for my occasional laziness. And Dad, thank you for your instant dad jokes. Thank you so much for your humor. I'd like to thank my aunt for always being available and her great advice. I'd like to thank the guests present here today. Again, please, I cannot believe that I'm in the presence of all of you. It's truly an honor. I would also like to say a couple of words for my grandfather who passed last week on Friday. I regret a lot of things in regards to him because I couldn't tell him that I had written this book. But I feel like he would have been very happy. Anyhow, it's a roller coaster. It's been a roller coaster. There's been a lot of ups and downs along the way, but I'm glad that I can stand here today in front of all of you and present this book and publish this book to the world. I don't know if I'll write another book. I don't know what it'll be about, but I hope I can keep writing in one way or another. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely outstanding. I'm sure most of us are overwhelmed. Thank you, Fakhra, and thank you, Rizwan, for adding this star to the galaxy. Honestly, it's a proud moment for me. It is an encouragement. If it is an encouragement for me, I'm sure it's an encouragement for many of you around. I'm absolutely speechless. Rubab, I'm sure you're going to write many more books. Somebody asked her how long it took. Is kitab ko likhne mein aapko kitna time laga? So she said 1 year. Imagine the patience. Imagine she was a 14-year-old when she actually started writing this book. And just depth ka subject uthaya hai, I'm sure it calls for a lot of encouragement and it calls for a lot of courage. Thank you, Fakhra, and thank you, Rizwan, for giving that around. So, again, I'm honored to invite Professor Khalid Mirza, chief guest for today's evening. Mr. Khalid Mirza has nearly 50 years of work experience. Start of professional life, he served in various executive positions in Asmar Ali Fancy Group, a diversified business conglomerate. From late 60s to the early 80s, Mr. Mirza gained extensive investment banking experience in Pakistan and the United Kingdom, in project finance, corporate mergers and acquisitions, securities issuance and trading, and portfolio management. He joined IFC in 1983, and by 1994, he became IFC's Chief of Mission for Turkey and Chief of Regional Mission for Thailand in 1998. As Chairman, Securities and Exchange Commission of Pakistan from 2000 to 2003, he implemented major programs on capital markets and corporate sector reforms and took steps to enhance the institutional capacity of the Commission. He then managed the World Bank's program to develop the financial sector and private sector in East Asia and Pacific region between 2003 and 2006. As a chairman of the Monopoly Control Authority in 2006 to 2007, he introduced reforms to improve the institution's effectiveness and advised the government on its conversion into a modern competition agency. He was the first chairman of the Competition Commission of Pakistan from October 2007 to August 2010. While I was writing this, I was actually getting, loss of the dates, but I hope I've managed them correctly. And he has successfully implemented the new competition regime. He also played a pivotal role in building Commission's capacity to achieve a high standard of agency effectiveness. From 2010 to 2021 August, Mr. Mirza was professor at LUMS, Lahore. Currently, he is with Lahore School of Economics as a full professor. Thank you so much, Khalid Saab, for being here. Thank you so much for coming to the podium and sharing your thoughts as well.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. It's indeed a privilege and an honor to be here, particularly with this distinguished people at the podium with me. And I feel distinguishably honored by their presence. I'd like to first of all, a lot has been said. Frankly, there's very little left for me to say. But whatever it is, I'll tell you the way I feel. I would like to, of course, do the honors of thanking Dr. Fakhra and Major Dr. Syeda Rabab, and above all, their talented offspring, Syeda Rabab Ali, the author of this book, for inviting me. I feel fairly humbled in the presence of such a distinguished gathering. Frankly speaking, and I don't want to sound unnecessarily humble or modest, but I honestly feel humbled in the presence of such a distinguished gathering and unequal to the task of being involved in the launch of the book that we just did on a subject of which I know rather little. In fact, my knowledge is fairly rudimentary. I'm, of course, very impressed by the book, which I happen to have read. It's not that I haven't read it. And no praise is sufficient for the young author that has actually put this together. There's a lot of insight there. There is a lot of research which has gone in. I can see that it has been a struggle for her at this young and tender age. And I am impressed, to be honest. In fact, quite amazing. So, but that has been said by all, and I'd just like to add my emphatic ditto to what has been already expressed. Now, when Ma'am Fakhra spoke to me about coming to this function and being involved in the launch of this book, quite frankly, I didn't know what she was talking about. Social equity. The only equity I knew about was assets minus liabilities. Okay? And now to tell me to talk about social equity, I mean, the mind boggled. Frankly, I didn't know what was being talked about. When I read the book, yes, I did get educated on the subject. I had, by the way, heard of another term related to equity, that was brand equity. And that's a term which a very distinguished special assistant to the Prime Minister, Dr. Sanya Mishter, said about me, that you have a lot of brand equity. And I thought that she was praising me, and maybe she was. Okay? But when I looked at the term brand equity, it was simply that value that comes from the name, from the brand, and not the intrinsic value. That is, you have generic medicines, and then you have those with a brand. And it's the value attached to that brand. So it's something supernumerary. It's not something that comes from the real worth, but it is, uppar ka, dikhava. So be that as it may, that was the other equity that I knew about. And what is, after having read the book, okay, and this is speaking from knowledge now, it's not speaking from just my own gut. What are we talking about when we talk about equity? Okay, and particularly in the economic and social sense. And it's been said, and I'd like to repeat that. We are talking about fairness. We are talking about justice. We are not talking about being equal, because if you are talking about being equal, then that may not be just, that may not be fair. No, I can tell you, for example, it was just said that somebody, who has all the opportunities in the world and goes to a good university, does well, somebody that doesn't have that opportunity may not be able to do that well. And how do you create that situation where the equity is created between the two? That is an equitable dispensation between the two. And I'd like to reverse that a little bit, which some people may or may not like. Okay? It's that if a person who comes from a background, a luxurious background, is then sentenced by a court to jail. Okay? Right? And there's a person of an ordinary background is also sentenced to jail. The British would put the person from that luxurious background in class 2. Okay? And they put the other person in the lower class, what's it called, third class jail, I don't know what they call it, but right at the bottom. And of course, many people, do-gooders and so forth, say, this is very unfair. They both should be in the same place. Is it fair or is it unfair? If you talk in terms of equity, it's probably fair. If you talk in terms of equality, it is unfair. Okay? So, I mean, one has to look at it. What is fair depends on the circumstances, depends on the need, depends on a variety of other aspects that have nothing to do with keeping the... And Rubab mentioned it very well. I mean, it talked in terms of the differences between men and women. That is, you can't have the same treatment for a woman as for a man, because it may not be equitable. Okay? And now, I'm actually at this point, which again some people may not like, reminded of Mahatma Gandhi, okay, that the Indians call Bapu. What he once said, and that's worth noting, okay, whatever be our views about the Mahatma, but some of the things he said were quite insightful. He said that when a public servant takes a decision, okay, then whatever decision whatever decision he or she takes should matter to and be equitable to the lowest rung in society. Okay, so it's not talking equity, it's not talking being equal to or the same, or okay, but be equitable for the lowest rung in society. And I think that needs, and it occurred to me after I read the book that the Mahatma had said that. It didn't occur to me before. Okay, so now I'd like to say something else, which is that when it comes to, and by the way, some of the chapters in your book, Rubab Bete, are really things that I would like lawyers to read. The judicial part, for example. I mean, it is something that I think lawyers would benefit from. And if you see in England, okay, and this comes about after I thought about this matter, after reading your book, there used to be a thing called there is rather a thing called the English common law, which we've also adopted in Pakistan, okay, and in many other Commonwealth countries. And it emerges from laws that were extant in the British Isles and a bit of Roman law thrown in, but essentially it was a normative law, either through laws which were promulgated by Parliament or the King, okay, either through laws or through judicial precedent. Certain things were cast in stone, as it were, unless you could distinguish from them. And you had to do that. That was it. Right or wrong, that had to be followed. Then people started going to the king that this is very unfair. You're asking, I mean, yes, it is the law and the courts have dispensed justice, dispensed the law the way they should, but is this fair to us? Then the kings set up courts of chancery. Those were courts of justice, of equity. In fact, the word equity has been used. Okay? And so you could go on grounds of equity and grounds of fairness and grounds of what is just against the decision of a common law judge in front of the court of chancery and say, well, this is maybe in accordance with law, but it is not something in which the courts have done justice. And it took a long time actually for the two concepts to be merged, but for a long time they were quite separate. So it's not that that equity is a concept that wasn't known. It was known, it is embedded in the whole business of being fair. And I know that when I was in England, I lived about 7 years in England, if you say, well, you wanted to buy a car, okay, right? You went around and to several garages when you wanted to buy a car, and suppose there was a difference in price between what was being asked and what you were wanting to pay. The entire negotiation in buying the car settled around or what is fair. Okay? You go to the United States, as I did after that, and there if you wanted to, say, buy a car, okay, it's not a question of what's being fair. It's what you want and what I want, and if the curves cross, we have a deal. Otherwise, you go your way and I go my way. I remember we were buying a house in the United States, in the Washington area, and this chap was a person, you know, which he negotiated the price from a certain level, I think like $144,000 down to like $128,000, and then he started crying and weeping and said that, well, his wife had died, and which is why he wanted to sell this house. And my wife took me aside and said, well, we have to show our face to the Lord, the Almighty, in the next world, and you should now just do this deal. You've already beaten him down so much. So what more do you want? So I did the deal. Okay? And later I discovered his wife had indeed died. But she had died over a year ago. And since then he had remarried and had settled in Florida. Okay? So, right? So, I mean, we have to, I'm just trying to give you the difference in approach. If you have a society that is wedded to law, strict adherence with law, you may or may not end up with a fair situation. But if you are talking about a society that is governed by the precepts of justice and equity, you are likely to end up with something that is more just. Okay? Lord Denning, actually, in one of his books, and this we are talking now about Roman law, which preceded the common law. It's actually the basis of civil law in Europe, but parts of it have been borrowed and put in the common law as well. That was the other extreme. Lord Denning talks about this man who's convicted of murder. Case has been proved, evidence is there, the fellow says, now execute him. And there was no appeal in Rome, in ancient Rome, and the man is being taken for being executed. The person he is supposed to have murdered suddenly appears and goes to the executioner, please don't do it, I'm here. I mean, he never killed me, he was right. So they go back to the judge and they say, well, this fellow's still here, he's alive, and he hasn't been murdered by this, the evidence was wrong. So the judge says, I gave a sentence. That sentence had to be carried out. That is the law. And because you, the executioner, hasn't carried out that sentence, your sentence is also death. And you have appeared now before us to say that you're still alive. Okay? So you have misled us. So the sentence for you is also death. Okay? Lord Denning begins with the Roman law in this manner, that this is what the law is, and the law has to be followed, the law has to be implemented. But when you talk in terms of equity, that's not the case at all. And when you talk in terms of equity, you take all circumstances account. You take needs into account. You say, well, what is fair? What would be the right thing to do? So this is what I wanted to mention to you, that in my opinion, I mean, this is a book that is worth putting in my library. I can tell you this. It's a book that should be read by all thoughtful people. You need to work on a further volume after this. A lot of areas which I can see need to be developed further. I'm sure you'll do that, and I'm sure you've already noted that. You see, knowledge basically consists of two parts. One is add to the store of what we know. The other is you take what you already know and you classify it and you categorize it and you tabulate in a way that it can be easily understood. Rubab Bete, that's what you've done. You've actually, and for somebody like me, who is, by the way, as opposed to you, insensitive, okay, and who unlike you, is a bit of a Philistine when it comes to art and stuff like that. If I can see value in your book, then I'm sure many other people would see much more. Okay, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
So Rubab, words and advice to cherish for times to come, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Khalid Saab. A difficult thing that I'm going to do now, I never wanted this evening to end, but I'm sure all things come to an end. And beautiful evenings like today, they will be part of our memories forever and ever. हमने आप सबका शुक्रिया भी अदा किया, but I'm sure we can't thank you enough for sparing so much time today, for being here, sitting here patiently. Thank you so much to the guests of honor and to our honorable chief guest. I'll now have to call an end to this evening with another request, the same as I did earlier, for those people who joined us late. If you would like to buy the book, the launch of which you have attended today, it is available outside at a special discount of 20%. If you would like to purchase it later, you can do it through Liberty bookstores all across, as well as online through Amazon. बहुत शुक्रिया आप लोगों का. There is tea served right outside the auditorium. Allah bless all of us. Thank you once again, and Khuda Hafiz.